Hey everybody. So I started grading the colonies a couple days ago. I'm starting with my weakest colonies first, just because they've already had 6 gallons of syrup. I wanted to see if they've grown up at all, and they really haven't very much. And what I started to realize is that a lot of the colonies need another round of feed at least. The problem is I'm about out of syrup. I got about 250 gallons here and maybe 100 gallons left on the other side, so 350 gallons of syrup. And I'm starting to suspect that all the colonies are going to need another 2 gallons. The small colonies are definitely going to need at least another 2 gallons, and maybe then some, if I want to try to juice them up for California, which is the goal. Um, Problem is we've already burnt through about 7,500 gallons of syrup this year, which is the most I've ever used. And now I'm looking at having to buy another 2,600 gallons. That's the minimum amount that Data Ant will sell me. So it's going to be about 10,000 gallons of syrup. I've never used that much syrup before. It's a little frustrating to have to spend so much money in November that I wasn't really budgeting for. Last year, 7,500 gallons covered us easy. We had several hundred gallons left over. And now I'm wondering even if this next half load will be enough. What's going on is we're just having really high temperatures. It's in the 70s, low 80s every single day. The nights are above 60 degrees. So the bees are just active. Now, the plus side of that is there's still a lot of pollen coming in. I'm seeing multiple types of pollen in every single bee yard, several frames of pollen in the hive. I'm seeing drones in every single bee yard right now. I'm even seeing some drone pupa on the top bars, just in a couple of the, just a couple of the strongest colonies in each location. So the bees are definitely in a growth period. And the reason I want to feed them again is not only to stimulate that growth, but there were a few locations that I fed 4 gallons to. And then when I went to go give them their 6 gallon, they were just, the whole yard was honey bound, just zero space. And I thought, okay, well, cool, I'm going to save some syrup. I just won't have to feed them again this year. Well, when I came back around a month later, after skipping their feed for a month, their weight had crashed like a lot because they're just out burning so many calories. It felt like the weight equivalent of a 2 gallon bucket of syrup just was gone from the hive. Now, the plus side is there's a lot of pollen in there. There's a lot of brood in there, which is great, but I'm too scared to not hit them again because I don't want them to starve to death. I've just worked too hard. So I don't know. It's a little tough to make that purchase this late in the season. If I were to feel good about it, I would have to feel that I could make that money back up here in California, in the next several months to justify it. We've always budgeted high for syrup, and thank goodness for that. But I'm going to have to tap into our full budget for the syrup this year, which we've just never done. Now, if I can just send 80 additional colonies to California and they make grade and come back healthy, that'll pay for that 2,600 gallons. That's how good California is financially. So I would want to make more than that because obviously I'm going to have to run around like a chicken with my head cut off to slam the syrup on everybody while it's still warm. If I wait too late to feed them or I drag my butt or something, the pollen's going to go out or, the temperature may crash. And then what? They're just going to plug out with that syrup. It's just not going to help me as far as growth and getting more colonies going. So what I'm thinking to do is tomorrow, it's Sunday, I'm going to go ahead and call Data Ant, order another half load of syrup, and then just instead of grading, instead of pulling brood, instead of doing anything, I'm going to add a lot of water to the syrup because I've been feeding them really thick, but I'm going to make this a thin, not a 1-to-1. It won't be 1-to-1, but it'll be thinner than what I normally feed them. And then I'm just going to run through all the colonies as quick as I can and just tag all the hives with 2 gallons as quick as I can get it. And normally it takes me a whole month to get through everything. I'm hoping I can maybe cut that down into a couple of weeks, maybe 2 or maybe 3 weeks. While we have the weather, we have the pollen, and then the bees will take a couple weeks to take all that syrup back down, which should put us sometime into December. If December is really warm, I could find myself in the same boat. So, and it was warm last year. And I looked at the next 30-day forecast for my part of Florida, for as much as they can guarantee anything 30 days out for the weather here. It's forecasted to be a warmer than average winter, and it's already very warm here in Florida. Last year, it was pretty much hot until January is when we started getting our first freezes. So if it's going to be even warmer than last year, I'm going to err on the side of feeding the bees because they're going to just be plowing through all those calories, and I can't let them crash. And it could go either way for me. I could spend all this money on syrup and put myself in a financial bind at the start of next year, which would really suck. Or they could just really grow and we could get more colonies and we may make more money. I have no idea. But I generally have taken the principle with the business that when in doubt, go ahead and just invest in the bees. If I think they need food, just feed them. If you think they need medicine, just medicate them. If you think you need to run through and plow through the hives again, just do it. And usually that's worked out in our favor. Sometimes it hasn't. But I find it's best, if you're going to gamble on the bees. And I think, at least over time, they'll repay it. Maybe not always in a short run. They may not pay it back by the time I get that $10,000 bill from Data in the mail. But I think it's the right thing to do. So that's what's going on. I've been really stressed out about it the last few days trying to make that call. But hey, we're going to go for it, and we'll see how it turns out. Okay, so speaking of syrup, I've got to feed all these girls here. I think there's about 68 colonies. These were 5-frame nucs that we were actually raising queens in all this spring and early summer, back before we started really converting over to those mini styrofoam nucs. And I think we moved these in like third week of June, but they just have not grown at all. And I've got several hundred colonies just like this. Like, I swear they've been like 5, 6, 7-frame populations. I can kind of see some of them starting to move into the top box a little bit, but they just haven't been doing very much. And these have all had 6 gallons. I'm going to give them an 8th gallon today to try and stimulate some growth for them. The queens are, obviously, they're new. They were probably mated in, I don't know, June, I guess, maybe, or late May. And I've seen 0 signs of mite damage, just because we threw an apivar strip back when they were 5-frame nucs. And that one apivar strip just took any mites out. Got a great kill. And this is one of my better bee yards. It's a lot of pollen, great pond right nearby. So they got a good water source. They've always done really well here over the winter. I don't know what they look like now. We're about to find out. But this is one of the yards that I'm going to gamble that I'm hoping that if I buy all that extra syrup, I can just keep feeding these suckers and that we can get them to California. I really would love them to be an 8-frame population right now, but judging from what I've seen in the other locations, that's very optimistic thinking on my part. But let's get into them and find out. Well, colony number 1 looks pretty darn good. Check that out. Got a lot of honeycomb on the top bars. I checked underneath a second ago. There was only about 5 frames worth of bees, so still kind of small. And might be a frame or 2 of bees up top here. Not too bad. I'll keep going. Here's what I'm seeing down underneath, and that's how I kind of grade it for California, is I count how many frames of bees are covered when I flip it up underneath. So that's about 5 frames. So they're basically still a 5-frame nuc to me. There's some bees over there. If I wanted to be generous, I might call it a 6. And let me show you this. Here is a super. What I did is, because I have got no comb left, which really sucks. But what I did is I came back around to a lot of these yards and I threw a medium box of foundation. Now this is all new foundation that we bought this year to replace the old stuff that we burnt. And you can kind of see they're starting to draw it out a bit. They haven't moved up into it. So they're just still really stunted. If they could draw this box out before winter, they'd probably go to California. But if they can't draw it, then this is all they're going to be. And this is one of the reasons I'm trying to feed them extra, because you can definitely see the wax production there. Check that out. I just popped the lid off and look who's hanging up there. I always tell new beekeepers, because I see them pop the lid off and they throw it in the grass or something, but I'm like, you have no idea how often the queen is hanging up there. So I'm going to put her back in the hive, but I want to show you guys how much they've drawn in the last 3 weeks. Okay, so this was a box of foundation that I put on exactly 3 weeks ago. And then I hit them with 2 gallons of syrup. And that's kind of what they've drawn. They've got about this much on both sides, that much on both sides. There's a 3rd frame in there too. So not quite 3 full frames they've drawn in 3 weeks. So I don't know. I hope they'll keep drawing it. The fact that they drew this in in October, I find to be pretty impressive. So I hope I see more of this in this yard. Here's a little sample palette. This is kind of what I'm seeing in the yard. You got some like this one and this one that are just really banging. I mean, look at the fresh wax. Look at all those little wax cappings they've got up there on the top bars. So their wax glands are really stimulated, which is great. And I got this one, same thing, looking fantastic. I can see there's a partial frame or two here. They're kind of starting to draw. That one they haven't touched. And then some of the hives are looking just like this. I mean, surprisingly good. They've really jumped in 3 weeks. And then I got some like these two that haven't hardly done much of anything. I mean, they're not bad, but they're definitely still like a nuke. They're basically a 5-frame nuke, more or less. Same thing with over there. And they've all got the same amount of feed. And these have not touched their top box at all. This one hasn't touched their top box. So I don't know. So far, it seems like half the yard is like really growing, and the other half are still those little nukes that I brought in back in June. Hopefully, the other ones will do a little better. But I tell you, it does make me feel better about having to buy that syrup if I'm even seeing this growth. Because remember, I only need 80 colonies to go to California that I would have not otherwise been able to send. And these two right here, I think with more feed and warm temperatures, and I keep the mites down, that they could probably go. And as of right now, they couldn't go. I know they look really nice, but they don't have the 8-frame population I'm looking for to go to California. So I wish the other nuke yards looked like this. This has been the best of all of them I've gone through. But, you know, it is what it is. Okay, yard's done. The hives are basically what I showed you guys. They're starting to draw some foundation. They're still growing, pollen coming in. There's some drones out and about. I gave them 2 more gallons. The syrup's a little bit thinner because some of them still hadn't taken their buckets from 3 weeks ago. So I thinned it up a little bit with some water so they can take it a little quicker. And hopefully with the pollen and the heat, they'll use that to draw more foundation and to continue to grow. The brood's looking really healthy. I can't see any signs of mite damage, which is fantastic. So these things have now had 8 gallons. This is the first yard I have ever fed in my life this much syrup directly. We've done some open feeders and maybe some hives in the past have gotten that much, but I've never done 8 gallons worth of solid buckets. So hopefully I'll see a result on that. I do feel a lot better about buying the semi truck after seeing how much these have grown. Unfortunately, the other summer nuke yards don't look this good, but maybe they'll be a little bit late bloomers and we can get them up there too, just like this yard. So we'll see how it goes.